Presentation of dialogue on Idaho Public Television is made possible through the generous support of the Laura Moore Cunningham Foundation, committed to fulfilling the Moore family's legacy of building the great state of Idaho.
Coming up, she was the first woman to sit on the Supreme Court, famously saying she wanted to do well so she wouldn't be the last. I talk with retired Supreme Court Justice Sandra Day O'Connor next on Dialogue. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome to Dialogue. I'm Marcia Franklin. In 1981, President Ronald Reagan made history when he nominated an Arizona judge, Sandra Day O'Connor, to the United States Supreme Court. The U.S. Senate would go on to confirm O'Connor by a vote of 99-0, making her the first woman to serve on the nation's highest court. In her nearly 25-year career on the court, O'Connor would cast many deciding votes in high-profile cases. She, though, has always taken a rather low profile when it comes to talking about those opinions. But that doesn't mean she isn't busy, and recently the 83-year-old retired justice was in Idaho. O'Connor was in Boise to receive an award from the Andrus Center for Public Policy, which was also hosting a conference on women and leadership. O'Connor, who grew up on a ranch in Arizona, drew comparisons between herself and Governor Andrus, who was raised in rural Oregon.
Both Governor Andrus and I had early childhood homes without any electricity or indoor plumbing, a joy not everyone can say they've had. And were it not for our careers in public service, we might just be an unemployed cowgirl and an unemployed lumberjack. Who knows?
It looked like O'Connor would also be an unemployed lawyer when she graduated from law school in 1952 because of the discrimination against women.
When I graduated from law school, I tried very hard to find a job in my new legal profession. I was spurned time and time again because I was a woman and they weren't going to hire women lawyers.
O'Connor would finally get a job at a county district attorney's office, at first for no pay. Over the years, she would go on to have her own law firm, be a deputy attorney general, be elected to the Arizona Senate, where she became majority leader, and then become a judge. And then one day in 1981, as she told the audience in Boise on the second day of the conference, came the call from President Ronald Reagan that would change her life.
And he said, "Sandra, I'd like to announce your appointment to the Supreme Court tomorrow. Is that all right with you?" And I said, "Yes, Mr. President."
During her nearly 25 years on the court, O'Connor would cast many deciding votes, sometimes with her conservative colleagues, other times with the more liberal justices. She talks very sparingly about her decisions, preferring instead to concentrate on her major concern today, civic literacy.
Our society suffers from an alarming degree of public ignorance. Only about 1/3 of adult Americans can name the 3 branches of government, let alone say what they do. Less than 1/3 of 8th graders can identify the historical purpose of the Declaration of Independence, and it's right there in the name.
To address the issue, O'Connor formed a nonprofit called iCivics. Its projects include online games that teach children about the 3 branches of government.
11 million games have been played in the 2 years since we started it. And I'm not used to using terms like hits and unique visitors. But 11 million sounds like a lot of good learners to me. Democracy is not a spectator sport. Thomas Jefferson said, "We in America do not have a government by the majority. We have a government by those who participate." I sat down with Justice O'Connor to talk with her about her passion for civic education and her other interests, one of which is shared by many people right here in Idaho. Welcome to Idaho. Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Have you been here many times before? I know you used to ski Sun Valley, right?
Yes, and I have come in the past any number of times for skiing or hiking or camping or fishing or whatever. It's
That's right.
a great area.
People may not realize you're an avid fly fisher.
Yeah, I really loved fish. I don't know why. I don't eat them. I don't keep them. I let them go. It's catch and release stuff, but it's so much fun.
Relaxing.
It is. It's great. Well, no, it's not relaxing. You're very tense. You have to try to find the spot where you think a cast might produce a fish, and you have to really concentrate and try to get your fly to that tiny spot, and then see if you can get the interest of the fish you think that's there. So you have it takes a lot of concentration and focus.
Kind of like
it's not relaxing, I'd say, at all.
So kind of like convincing 8 other justices to...
Well, no, because you have time.
Hang on to your view.
No. With the justices, you have lots of time. And you can do it in writing or in person or whatever.
Right. So...
With fish, you don't have lots of time. You catch them there or they're gone.
What will be your message to the conference goers here? This is a conference on leadership and women. What do you want them to hear from you?
Women do have a great role to play in our country and in these times in terms of leadership roles. It's very impressive, and we have problems to solve, and women can help solve them in very realistic terms.
You've been very upfront about the fact that you were a little nervous taking the job.
Yes.
It's not like you walked into it with,
No.
full steam. And I think that's important for people to hear, that you had some trepidation, you needed...
Well, when you're the first to do something, you certainly want to feel that you can fulfill it in a way that it will encourage others to follow you, that it won't be a step backward for women, that it will be a step forward. You want to feel if you take the job in an environment in which women are not often given that chance, you want to advance it, not set it back. So
you don't want to be the last to do it.
Right.
One quote of yours that I've always found interesting is that when you were appointed to the court, you said that you didn't think the most important thing was that you were going to decide cases as a woman, but that you were a woman who was going to get to decide cases. You've never viewed women's brains or as operating differently in some way.
They don't, I think. Women's experiences can differ dramatically from that of men. Certainly that was true in the days before women had any significant public role to play. Their experiences were different, and we're all influenced by our day-to-day lifetime of experiences. When did you get into public discussions with people for the press? How long have you been involved?
For about 30 years.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But it was not,
but
at the time,
you had to step into it gradually.
I did. I felt that I needed to start as a secretary, which is what I did.
Yes.
Yeah, and then get some more education.
Exactly.
Now it's more fast track, I think.
Yes.
For people.
But it takes time at first.
Do you get to visit much with the other women on the Supreme Court now?
Well, to some extent. I mean, they all are very busy and they don't have time to sit around and just chit-chat. But yes, even though I'm no longer a member of the court, when I am in Washington, D.C., if I'm there on days when the justices will be having lunch together, I will go and be part of that, which is a fun time to just sit around the table. They don't talk about the cases. It's just the kind of conversation you and I might have, or any other person. And I like doing that. It's fun when I'm there.
Occasionally you'll sit in on arguments still, right?
I do.
Like the affirmative action.
If it's an issue that I find interesting and one that I'd love to hear the arguments on, I will go to the courtroom and sit in. I have a good seat if I use it, and hear the arguments. I like to do that.
You sat in on the case regarding affirmative action in the University of Texas.
Yes.
Or I guess the oral arguments would have been earlier. The decision was this year.
Yes.
Were you pleased to see that decision kept firm some of your previous...
Well, sure. I'm always glad to see they haven't reversed something that I wrote in prior years. That's good news.
Tell me a little bit about why you've devoted time now to civic education.
it's very important that we encourage young people in this country to grow up as citizens who care about issues facing their state or their community or their nation, and that they know how to be involved in expressing views about it. This is very important. Many people think somehow that what they believe about an issue doesn't matter, that it's being decided by others, and so what they think doesn't matter. It does matter, because we're all citizens, and at some level we all participate in these things. So I think it's very important for young people to get them interested in issues that affect all of us, and to understand how to think about the issues and analyze them and be part of it. And you hope as citizens to be active in terms of resolving some of these issues. That matters.
And you've gotten into the video game side of this. Did you ever think you'd be involved in...
No, I didn't. But it's a good teaching tool. It's wonderful. I don't know if you've ever looked at any of the games that are posted on the iCivic's website, but they're fun to play, and they teach you something as you go along.
Some justices, and I've interviewed Justice Breyer, they like to talk about their past decisions.
Yes.
But that's not, you don't care to do that. You're not that interested in talking about, why.
Well, I don't make it a policy one way or the other.
And people ask you all the time about Bush v. Gore and, your thoughts on that. I suppose that shows that people are interested and they're involved in their government.
Well, to some extent. Not very often. Supreme Court decisions run the gamut of issues, and not many of the issues are things that the average citizen would want to dig into. They tend to be esoteric principles of law on matters that are not of general interest to the public. Sometimes they are, but not consistently.
You've allowed that decision people felt...
Well, people felt close to that. It was a presidential election, and we all care about who serves as our president. And that decision affected how votes were counted and how it was to be resolved. So yes, that was of general public interest, I think. Very much so.
Did it hurt the opinion of the court at all, do you suppose?
Well, could have.
Yes. Other decisions have as well, though.
Yes.
Brown versus Board of Education.
Could have as well.
Yeah.
Right. When you have broad popular opinion about some issue and one side loses, then the losing side doesn't have a very happy view about the court, does it?
Do you think that the next civil rights issue coming up has to do with gay marriage and issues like that? Do you think that's...
Well, I don't know. We've seen many laws in many states now authorizing gay marriage. We're seeing changes in laws. Now, whether that's going to, in turn, produce some legal issues that have to be resolved in the courts, I don't know. It could be that it won't result in any major publicly debated court issues. Perhaps it won't. Perhaps it'll all get solved.
This year there were some opinions coming out of the U.S. Supreme Court on that issue.
But not much.
What about immigration? Your state is very involved in this.
Very much so. That's an issue that affects the whole nation in very real ways, because we have borders to the south with Mexico, to the north with Canada. That doesn't seem to be troublesome at the moment, but the border with Mexico more so, perhaps in part because of some of the alleged trade that goes on in terms of drugs and weapons and so forth.
And Arizona's been at the forefront of...
It has. It's a border state.
So what's your sense of how this is moving along in your home state? Your ranch originally was in Mexico before the Gadsden Purchase.
Before Gadsden Purchase,
Yeah, your mom
yes.
was born in Mexico.
And my grandmother
and your grandmother
lived there for years, yes.
Do you think that your state's moving in the correct direction in terms of making laws about that?
Well, it's inevitable that the state will be active in passing certain laws to try to limit or control in some way illegal transfer of drugs or weapons. Right. That's a normal reaction of the state, I think.
The Supreme Court has upheld some of that and thrown out some of that.
Depending on the text of the particular law.
Were you happy with that decision, or?
Well, I don't know what decision you're talking about, and it doesn't matter whether I'm happy or not.
Tell me a little bit about your concern about judges being elected instead of appointed. Why is that an important issue for you?
Well, how we select our judges is something that every state has to decide for itself, for the state judges. And I think if you look at history and experience, that you might come down, as I do, in thinking that an appointive process is overall a better solution than the elective process when it comes to selecting judges. To have judges selected in popular elections is just kind of an odd way to pick the people who decide judicial issues. You don't find that happening in other nations around the globe, and I see why. I mean, it just is an odd way to pick judges.
Is it too politicized? Is that the
Well, it's political, and it means that the candidate for judicial office is going to have to take campaign contributions to run the campaign. Now, who's going to give money? The very lawyers who are most apt to appear before that judge. They will want to be favorably considered, so they're out there saying, I'll contribute to your campaign. Is that what you want? Of course not. It comes close to corruption. It's just horrible. And other nations do not elect their judges. None of them do. I mean, it's a carryover in this country from early day practice, and I don't think it's a good practice. I don't think it's the way we should select judges. I think merit selection systems without popular elections is a better way to go about it. And that's why some years ago in my state of Arizona, the legislature put before the voters of Arizona a merit selection system for judges and stopped having popular election of judges in the big counties.
Because if the people don't like the decision, then they can just keep voting the judges out, and there's no stability.
Right. Well, and you don't pick judges by popular vote. In my opinion, that is a poor way to select judges. You want to get people who are the best qualified to serve as a judge, and you will find that other nations and a majority of states in our own country select their judges in ways other than popular elections. So I supported putting before the voters in Arizona a change away from popular election to what amounts to merit selection system. And thankfully, the voters in Arizona approved that. That was a good move.
Did Citizens United exacerbate this problem with more money coming in?
I don't know. It could have.
As we wrap up, Justice, do you think we'll ever see a female president?
Of course we will. I don't know when, but we certainly will, and we seem to be a little further down that road every year. You see prominent names of women in very high positions, and so it's just a matter of time, I think.
Would you like to see that?
Well, of course I would. Yes. If it's somebody qualified, I would.
Well, thank you for your service. Thanks for your time as well.
I'm glad to be here.
Talking to me.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, O'Connor's visit, as I mentioned earlier, was part of a women's conference put on by the Andrus Center for Public Policy at Boise State University. Here's more on the event.
More than 700 people heard from a variety of speakers, including astronaut Barbara Morgan, political scientist Caroline Heldman, and a panel of Idaho female leaders. While the overall topic of the event was women in leadership, conference organizer David Adler said there was an underlying focus.
We are really focusing on the inequities in the workplace because that hits more people right where it matters, in the pocketbook. Inequality in the workplace hits women in a disproportionate way.
We're 51% of the population, we're about half of the workforce. We're still concentrated in the lower levels, right? Even when it comes to management.
The crowd also heard from New York Times golf reporter Karen Krause, who gained national attention when she said she didn't want to cover the Masters tournament until the Augusta National Golf Club admitted women. Shortly after that, it did.
Hopefully, I'm changing these attitudes, and they really are. This is the last male bastion, the country club golf set of chauvinism.
We're all excited about how far we've come, but we all know we're hitting a stop sign.
Writer Ann Taylor Fleming addressed her remarks to the young women in the audience, giving them a top 10 list of tips for navigating life.
Okay, number one, imagine a big life. Imagine the biggest life you can.
After her speech, Fleming asked the young women to join her on stage to discuss their concerns.
See? That's your world. That's right.
How do you continue to try in a world that is constantly knocking you down, and in a place where you walk past a group of guys on campus who whistle and say, "Hey, baby, nice ass," and you're like, no, you don't get to talk to me like that. But how do you say that?
We don't need to wait to start leading and doing things and living our dream.
I couldn't help but smile because there they were. All of a sudden they were enthusiastic. Their eyes were big and they thought, I can do that. That's what we need. All we need is that desire and the understanding that they're welcome. Give them a chance. And I would say to the corporate execs out there that might be watching this, hire them there and pay them the right amount of money for the effort that they do, and don't pay the men any more than you pay the women.
An event like this that's held on campus that gives us the opportunity to see these speakers that really do shake the ground on which we walk and make us reevaluate our perspectives and our lives. It's an opportunity that we're not going to get anywhere else.
Perkins was especially affected by hearing journalist Karen Krause.
I think she might have changed my future a little bit. I decided that I didn't want to write anymore. I didn't want to do any kind of journalism because I didn't like the fact that it was so negative. Karen Krause definitely directed me back to the path where I wanted to be, and I didn't really know it.
When she addressed the conference at the opening session, Justice Sandra Day O'Connor challenged the audience.
And the question I want to ask you is this: will you do something in response to what inspires you? Or will you let another amazing conference fade into your daily routine?
For Perkins, the answer is easy.
I feel like a different person, and I know that sounds kind of crazy because it's only been 3 days, but this conference has changed the way I think and completely altered my perspective in a positive way.
I spoke with the organizer of the conference, Professor David Adler, who is also the director of the Andrus Center for Public Policy. I asked him how the conference theme, women and leadership, fit in with his vision for the center.
Since I assumed the helm at the Andrus Center a year ago as director, it's been important for me that we address and advance constitutional issues, issues involving civil rights and civil liberties, and human rights, as well as a number of other issues, including civic education, participation and engagement in our system, and political civility. And when we look at those many, many issues that we need to address, women's rights, women's interests, the challenges and problems confronting women move right up the list because obviously they fit underneath human rights. Women's rights are a form of human rights. They fall into the category of civil rights, civil liberties. And so it's simply a matter of moving down our list of pressing issues that we feel that we want to tackle and I hope make a difference in the lives of Idahoans and Americans beyond Idaho. We need to change America by allowing women the opportunity to assume appropriate roles and leadership opportunities in all fields. And so the goal then was to invite highly acclaimed women from different fields across America so they could come share their perspectives on the challenges and hurdles that they've faced and overcome and the work that remains so that we can move beyond the inequities and the inequalities in the workplace. That's what the equal pay for equal work movement is all about. We know that here in Idaho, because Idaho leads the nation, unfortunately, in the number of workers who earn only a minimum wage, and a disproportionate number of those wage earners happen to be women, we know that women are getting hit from both sides. The minimum wage is not a livable wage, and how is a working mother to raise a couple of kids? It's virtually impossible.
Now, the audience is predominantly female. You're a minority.
I am.
It is.
It is. It's a strange feeling. You look around and you realize that there are very few men in this audience, and that's unfortunate, frankly. I had hoped that we would have more men. On the other hand, as you know, we sold every ticket available. The fire marshal indicated that we had reached maximum capacity, and so even if we had hoped to attract more men, there wouldn't have been seats for them.
How do you think you might have? Because, of course, men are part of the decision-making process for these workplace issues as well. So how might you have attracted more men to come, or why do you not think they're here?
You know, it might have been the case that the title confused some men. When you talk about women and leadership in the 21st century, maybe too many men thought this was just about women and for women. But if that's the conclusion that they've drawn, then that's pretty narrow-minded. Because the reality is, as Warren Buffett himself has said over a series of months, men need to listen to women. Men need to hire more women. And you heard some very articulate women in our conference today talk about their leadership style. And frankly, men have a lot to learn from women when it comes to leadership.
Dr. Adler, what do you hope the takeaway is for people who are coming to this conference?
I hope primarily that women will feel empowered, that they'll have a sense that they can, in fact, improve the quality of their lives. They can take home some very important lessons imparted to them by those who have faced these problems and challenges and have succeeded. And I think that we'll see some political action. After all, the best way to make a difference in their own lives is for them to grab hold of this problem in the political world, assert the need for greater legislation to enforce the Equal Pay Act. I think that people in Idaho can certainly ask the Idaho legislature and the Idaho governor to take seriously the proposition that women should be paid the same amount that men are paid to perform the same duties. I think that should be a political issue.
Thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
That's all the time we have. You've been listening to a dialogue about the Andrus Center Conference on Women and Leadership, featuring retired Supreme Court Justice Sandra Day O'Connor. For more about Justice O'Connor and the event, check out our website at idahoptv.org. Just click on Dialogue. For Dialogue, I'm Marcia Franklin. Thanks for tuning in.
Presentation of Dialogue on Idaho Public Television is made possible through the generous support of the Laura Moore Cunningham Foundation, committed to fulfilling the Moore family's legacy of building the great state of Idaho.